Very Honored Frater BT's Esoterinerd podcast, episode 8, in which I interview Phoenix Suvayas of Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Actually, it's pronounced Milwaukee, which is Algonquin for the good land.
But first,
Fama Fraternitatis RC.
One spring morning in 1611, in Kassel, present-day Germany, the original anonymous Rosicrucian Manifesto was published. It was nailed to posts and public display places where people would post want ads and things like that. The Fama Fraternitatis, or Fama, tells the story of Father Christian Rosenkreuz and his ill-fated pilgrimage to Jerusalem, and a new segment on the Esoterinerd podcast called The REAL Rosenkreuz Orden. We will examine the Fama line by line. If I have something to say about a particular line, I will. And if you have something to say about it, call 626-367-9254. And whether you say it to me live or leave it on the voicemail, it will be included in a future episode of the Esoterinerd podcast. So let's start at the beginning.
Nachdem der allein weise und gnädige Gott in den letzten Tagen seine Gnade und Güte so reichlich über das menschliche Geschlecht ausgegossen hat, damit sich die Erkenntnis hinsichtlich seines Sohnes sowie der Natur stets weiter ausbreite, dürfen wir uns mit Recht einer glücklichen Zeit rühmen.
Seeing the only wise and merciful God in these latter days hath poured out so richly his mercy and goodness to mankind, whereby we do attain more and more to the perfect knowledge of his Son Jesus Christ and nature, that justly we may boast of the happy time.
Denn hat uns nicht nur fast die Hälfte der unbekannten und verborgenen Welt entdecken lassen, uns viele wunderbare, vorher nie gesehene Werke und Geschöpfe der Natur gezeigt, sondern auch sehr erleuchtete und mit Weisheit begabte Menschen aufstehen lassen, die zum Teil die verunreinigten und vollkommenen Künste wieder zu ihrem Rechte bringen, damit der Mensch doch endlich seinen Adel und seine Herrlichkeit erkenne und verstehe, welche Art der Mikrokosmos ist und wie weit sich seine Kunst in die Natur erstreckt.
Wherein there is not only discovered unto us the half part of the world, which was heretofore unknown and hidden, but he hath also made manifest unto us many wonderful and never hitherto foresee works and creatures of nature, and moreover hath raised men, endued with great wisdom, which might partly renew and reduce all arts to perfection, so that finally man might thereby understand his own nobleness and worth, and why he is called microcosmos, and how far his knowledge extendeth in nature. Really? When I said bell, actually I meant more of like a, like gong type thing. Yeah. It was pretty good. I was scrolling through my news feed. I had never heard of the anime called Trinity Blood. I saw this guy's picture. I was like, what? I gotta get that guy on the podcast. I've got, I don't know what I'm looking at here. This is really incredible. So I contacted him, asked if he was willing to let me interview him. Let's get to that interview, shall we? Greetings, brother. Welcome to the Esoterinerd podcast.
Pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you aboard.
93, brother.
Your name is Phoenix, right?
So I go by Phoenix or Jacob. I've heard some of your before, and
oh, good.
I like what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Didn't know people were actually listening to it.
It does feel like that sometimes. I know I had a radio show, an internet kind of podcast radio show on the side, and I had no idea if anybody was even paying any attention. But we poured our heart out into that thing, and we played music and read poetry and talked about politics and anything that we could do. And, if nobody listened to it the first time, at least someday.
Yeah,
but
that's what I figured.
People listen to your stuff, I can tell.
Nice. I asked you for the interview because I saw on the Facebook newsfeed this excellent photograph posted, and of course the people who are listening will already have seen it because it'll be the image attached to this episode. So I wanted to ask you a little bit. I couldn't help noticing what struck me as aesthetically similar to the Nazi armband, but with a Star of David, a Mogen David or six-rayed star on it. Could you tell me a little bit about that one?
Oh, it's the Golden Dawn symbol, and it's actually partially a cosplay outfit. There's an anime called Trinity Blood, in which there's this Rosicrucian order that wears that uniform, and I saw it somewhere online, and I don't know, it suited me, so I had to have it.
I love that. So that's like a comic book, or is it a cartoon?
It's an anime. It's a cartoon television program, and I made some modifications to it for stage wear because I'm a singer-songwriter.
Nice. So you perform wearing it?
Well, I haven't yet. I just actually put it together, but I will. Yeah, that's what it's for.
What's the name of do you have a group name or another name that you use for performing music?
Yes, we don't have much on the internet to look at, but we're called 23 BC. The Theosophical Society National Conference, I got to show everybody some of our work, and we got a standing ovation, and the international president, Tim Boyd, was there, and that was pretty cool. Everybody loved it. Excellent. And, so a lot of people dig what we're doing, but we don't have any of it really ready. I mean, there's two videos that you can watch on YouTube. One of them's called 23 BC Part 2. It's the number 23, the letters B and C, Part 2. And then the other one's called Waters of Oblivion. So if you type in 23 BC Waters of Oblivion, that'll pop up.
Is it all right if I include it at the end of this episode?
Of course.
Okay, we'll do. So we'll all get to hear a bit of that. Was it theosophical in nature, the lyrics, or what was it that you think they liked?
Theosophy means divine wisdom, the study of divine wisdom. It's as vague as saying almost any spiritual word. I mean, it can be this or that. I mean, people make such a big deal out of these terms, and they want to have this little club that they can fit into, and that's sometimes, in some cases, it seems what Thelema has become in some ways, because people sometimes seem to forget Thelema means true will, and that's all it was intended to mean.
Yeah.
In Liber Al, it says you'll do no wrong if you call us Thelemites if you but look close into the word, for there are 3 grades, and it's not like saying, whoop-de-doo, Thelema. Thelema is life, it's will, it's love, And, I mean, everybody wants to be a part of a club, and it's good because it gets people interested in real spiritual things, to, start them out with that, and they can ease into the heavier, deeper side of the picture.
I've noticed a similar phenomenon with the word Catholic. Long ago, it was forgotten that it meant universal.
Universal.
And it came to me, some kind of twisted post-Constantinian, like 1984 meaning of the word universal, as in like Pax Romanus, we'll all be at peace as long as you all kneel before the throne of the Pope or whatever. And things get twisted, especially over time. And to me, the word Gnostic, gnosis, is a very personal experience. It refers to a very personal experience. And when I first heard that there was an ism at the end, I thought, oh, great. And then when I started hearing about people arguing about it and then people taking this stand versus that stand, I was like, okay, well, they lost it, I guess. But
Gnosis will never die, no matter what name we ascribe towards it. It's an experiential thing. Thelema will never die. None of these essences will never die. Catholicism,
the actual meaning, yeah.
So, and I think we have the least to worry about when it comes to, what we understand as Thelema these days. This is by far the best constructed system of study and attainment ever created, though least likely to be corrupted.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm very unfamiliar with it, actually. I came from a traditional Golden Dawn school. We weren't allowed to practice Crowleyan magic, so.
I find that strange because as Crowley defined magic, it's merely the arts and science of causing change to occur in conformity with will. So when you set a pen down on a table, that's magic. It's
right.
Just doing anything and saying anything. And I think it's more that's the catch that lures people in, like, ooh, magic, occult,
right.
voodoo, and then they get through it and they achieve a state of awareness that leads them to realize that everything is fantastical and magical, and everything is profound. The air we breathe, this orb that we're floating on in the middle of infinite space.
Yeah.
And then, but then the taboo structure still seeps out there and causes individuals to say, "Oh, stay away from that Crowley. He's into magic."
Yeah.
Oh no.
But I've had a lot of, I'm sure, very similar experiences, like after, our traditional Z formula neophyte initiations, coming outside after getting into a sense of oneness with the officers and realizing each of them represents an aspect of your own soul, and that Hierophant isn't really, a separate person in the ceremony. They're representing the higher self, and the candidate represents that part of you that hasn't been brought to the light yet. And after all of that, stepping outside and looking around and seeing the trees and seeing the stars coming out and everything, and you're still kind of in that state for a while. The world hasn't beat it out of you yet. You get on the freeway and get cut off a few times, and maybe you start to get jarred back into that sort of mundane state of mind.
I really respect the Golden Dawn tradition. I read Israel Regardie's works, and it's a beautiful tradition. And Crowley's system is that, but taken into a context that doesn't require a specific set of modalities. It's a more universal means of incorporating these archetypes into your life, no matter who you are, where you are, who you associate with, what's going on. But I love the Golden Dawn tradition. I'm a member of the Theosophical Society, and we had a big part in the formation of that. And it's a great thing. I love Jungian psychology, and it's a good thing to have a ceremonial system in which you can have a spiritual psychoanalysis in a physical environment where you're interacting with other individuals and coming to reflections on your own psyche that help develop you as an individual and bring you to a higher awareness. And the AA system has, as I'm sure you know, the whole Golden Dawn system attached to it. It's basically the same thing but sped up a bit. Basically, the system takes all the degrees of the Golden Dawn system and makes them the first degrees that one goes through up until the grade of Tiferet.
Makes sense.
In which one has the knowledge and conversation with the Holy Guardian Angel.
He added additional grades beyond that one?
Yes.
I know there's probably a certain amount of secrecy involved, but is there anything that you can say or maybe point to as far as reading material?
Well, I'd say the mystical and magical system of the AA is a good book to start with. You can find a copy of that on Amazon for about $30. And then Shoemaker's book is really good. Living Thelema.
What's Shoemaker's first name?
David.
Oh, okay.
Shoemaker. Yeah, he's a great guy. He's a scholar of Jungian psychology, and he's a psychologist himself. That's why I gravitate towards him, because he speaks my language a bit.
I want to get my hands on the Red Book.
Ah, yes, the Red Book. Fantastic. I'd like a facsimile of that. Right now, all I have is without the wonderful illustrations. I also have a PDF. So
yeah, that's
the most fantastical modern book ever created.
Now, that's Carl Jung's book, for the people who are listening who don't know what we're referring to. Does it have a title other than the Red Book?
Liber Novus.
Liber Novus by Carl Jung.
I see that as another Liber Al. I see around the beginning of the 20th century, a lot of different visionary experiences were going on, different people.
Yeah.
And they're writing them down. And these are all keystones for this new era, this new dawn. And all of them very essential. And I'd say Jung's is up there at the top of the most essential reading for this new eon.
You could even see how his influence came through Star Wars to shape the way that people think.
Oh, yeah. And, Obi-Wan and Liber Al, it says, used the obia and wanga, the work of the wand and the work of the sword. George Lucas was heavily studied when it came to mythology and the occult. He studied under Joseph Campbell, and he knew his stuff.
Were you raised around esoterica, or did you gravitate to it at a certain point?
Both of my parents are Christian. My dad's in the secular Franciscan order. He's a minister, and my mom was raised by a Lutheran pastor. So, no, I never knew anyone. But when I was in the third grade, in kindergarten even, I was always fascinated with ancient Egyptian symbology and things like that. I'd go into the library and pore through the books, and all the mystical traditions and the symbolical traditions of the mystical traditions fascinated me my entire life. And when I was in middle school through high school, I was experimenting with some things. I set up a little altar and painted the ceiling of my parents' closet night sky blue with the Egyptian five-pointed stars for Nuit, and I had these images of the Neters that I pulled out of a book that I got from somewhere, and candles and all that. So I was always going in that direction.
Yeah.
And it worked out in the end. But I still feel kind of lonely. I don't know many people where I live, actually, to this day.
Where is that?
I live in Milwaukee, and I just recently on Facebook connected with the only OTO brother that I know lives here as of yet. Oh, well, there's one other that I know of, but I'm sure there's more. But I'm kind of on a little island all to myself.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, if there's some Esoterinerd in Milwaukee, hopefully they'll hear this and check out, when you guys have some shows, and maybe get connected with the Theosophical Society. So there's an actual chapter there in Milwaukee?
Well, yeah, there's a Theosophical Society lodge here. But when it comes to actual,
magic.
Yeah. Not anything. So I've been building up my own collection here and trying to form something, a Gnostic church or a little get-together center, coffee shop even, or maybe we could make I don't know, we could make an encampment for the OTO. I don't know. I have to meet people first.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of moving to New York. Not really sure. But I do love Milwaukee.
I always like the idea of a coffee house / occult bookstore type situation, or a tea house with a Zen garden in the back.
Mhm. Yeah.
Excellent.
I always wanted to do something like that.
Well, I hope you do. And hopefully this podcast will actually, help to connect, us people who, practice our own religions in our own spare bedrooms. We're sort of an interesting breed. A lot of people don't even know there is such a person. And when they hear about, if, like, for example, if I tell someone that I do it, they'll say, wow, I've never heard of that, but I know that there's at least millions. I mean, if not tens of millions or more.
Don't get me wrong, I got a great social environment here, a lot of connections with people who know all about this stuff. They're just not, lenient towards practicing themselves. They have other directions, but they respect it. There's a lot of people like that. Most of my friends are friends through the internet. One of whom lives in New York and has a similar philosophical and spiritual perspective, and is interested in working with me on a sort of, I don't really want to call it back in the 60s there were a lot of, we want to create a new means of living against the grain of this cult of Juno Manita and Mammon. And we want to create a networking system of individuals who have already begun such ways of life. I don't want to use the word commune. It's just,
right. But it might include that.
It might include, communes and whatnot, but, I really think it's important that individuals on that path get connected. So we're talking about creating a networking system online for individuals who already started community projects like that, pagan, alternative living,
urban farming, maybe.
Yeah, that kind of off-the-grid thing. So that's why I'm going to New York in November to talk with her about that. And I'm going to meet with Joseph of the Gnostic Church of LVX, because I really respect what he's doing there. Like I said, I've been trying to create a similar space for several years. Here, sort of Gnostic, Theosophical, interfaith, house of study, worship, prayer, magic, etc., etc. And he's already got a wonderful thing going on over there, it seems. So I'm excited to meet with him.
Excellent.
And discuss future.
Sounds great.
What's really needed, though, is a strong promotional entourage of individuals who can get this lifestyle into a popularized modality to the vox populi.
Russell Brand isn't enough.
Russell Brand is not enough. That is
He's
right.
all by himself out there. Poor guy.
That's why I want to create this networking system, and that's why we need more documentaries, more discussions, more people not just living the example, but showing the world that this works, that we can live this alternative lifestyle and can save this planet before we all go to hell.
Hear, hear.
Horrible. And this planet is not going to be able to sustain us much longer if we don't start right the fuck now and
Rapidly
stop playing our video games and stop playing, whatever, and drifting off into the clouds and delusions of this daydream society when the fucking world is crumbling under our feet all around us. I remember, I think it was Amy Goodman. I saw her speak years back, and I'm pretty sure it was her that said, for an activist, every day is the end of the world, and you have to be the superhero and do whatever the fuck you can to save the world every day, because this is it lately.
Yeah.
I neglected to mention Organization for Inspiration. It's a nonprofit collective artists organization that I've been working on for several years, trying to mobilize individuals to work with the collective unconscious mind of our species through various arts, and try to organize activist-oriented experiences in order to tap into this and, in a sort of a salon-esque fashion, discuss and empower and shoot these intentions out into the world to help our species overcome our issues at a more steady and rapid pace. I worked with Jeff Penyavosh, who was friends with Allen Ginsberg back in the day. Jeff's poet laureate, unfortunately passed away the other year, and a lot of other great, awesome, amazing people like that, poets, musicians, visual artists, and organizing events that combine film, poetry readings, musical performances, speeches, interactive art with the audience, all happening simultaneously. Well, not simultaneously, obviously, but, in the same spot. And then we have the film and several things going on simultaneously, but obviously we're not having poetry readings over music. But,
right.
To try to create a sort of an intense, you could call it a ceremonial, magical utensil using symbology, and all these performances centered around a common goal. One of the best ones we did was towards ecological awareness. Awareness, furtherance of global awareness of the major predominant ecological issues that we need to focus on at this time. And the next one that we're planning on is interfaith event to promote interfaith compassion and awareness of what Crowley showed us in 777 is that all these archetypes, all these symbols and gods and goddesses and angelic hosts are all representing the same fundamental essences of universal cosmic consciousness. And just because the symbols are different doesn't mean we have to yell at each other. We can turn this into a theosophical world where we can respect each other's different approaches. All religions are different pieces to the same cosmic puzzle, and we need to learn how to connect the pieces the right way.
Yeah.
So that we're not stepping on other people's boundaries. So we want to work on this at several locations. One of the most important ones will be, I'm sure you know about Chichen Itza.
I don't.
But I'm not sure if you've heard of, in Wisconsin, there's a place called Aztlan. And Aztlan lines up on the energetic grid of the planet in direct relation to the Chichen Itza site. If you ever want to talk further about this and the collective unconscious mind and the energy grid of the planet with all the nodal points and the spots with the ancient temples and whatnot, we could talk about that another time. But in Wisconsin, it's at the Pyramid of the Sun, which looks very much like as we understand it, I have a friend who is initiated in the Central American shamanic tradition of the Mayan priesthood. And they've passed down from generation to generation these ancient teachings, and they know that the pyramid here in Wisconsin was actually built by the Mayan priesthood to mark that place on the grid. And if you go to Google Maps and you search Chichen Itza, and then you also do a search on Aztlan, Wisconsin, you'll find that they line up on the same parallel precisely.
How do you spell those words?
Huh?
How do you spell Chichen Itza?
Chichen Itza, CHITZENITZA.
Okay, thank you.
I believe. So there's Chichen Itza, and then there's Aztlan, which is AZTALAN.
Okay.
And so those line up precisely on the same line. And then you see also that the distance between those two and the distance between Chichen Itza and in Peru, the Machu Picchu is the same distance, although Machu Picchu is slightly to the right because if it was directly on the same parallel, it would be under the ocean, which perhaps there is something around it. But And the main idea is, I mean, I've been to Aztlan, and you definitely feel this intense surge of connection to cosmic consciousness at this site. You can feel that your words and intentions are emanating across the globe, and simultaneously all the thoughts and emotions on this planet are being drawn towards you when you're standing on the spot. And that's the place that you want to, those are the places that you want to go to.
Yeah.
To try to make the world a better place. And there's many other sites besides these
Power
that are
spot.
of key importance, but these are the ones we're planning on focusing on.
What was the name of the second song that you were having trouble having people play anywhere but on the computer?
That's actually both the songs that are on YouTube right now. There's something distorted about the audio unless it's played directly off of a computer, but if it's played on a phone, there's some sort of echoing distortion, which I haven't riddled out. And those recordings were made at least a couple of years ago now, when we had a different bass player and a different drummer. Now we've got a lot of better of a sound.
Mm-hmm.
But to give people an idea of the sort of direction we're going musically, if you'd like to, that would be good.
Okay, and I'll post a link to your page as well as to the page for the group 23BC. Oh, is there any significance that you want to go into behind the name 23BC?
Well, there are 23 chromosomes per male and female,
Mm-hmm.
and both in the allusion to that, and also there is an old numerological mystical tradition of the Baphometic, hermaphroditic, consciousness, the alchemical stone of gender, having to do with 23. B and C, of course, being the second and third letters of the alphabet.
Ah, didn't catch that. Now I
right. And there are other reasons, but
2 divided by 3. They did a Jim Carrey movie about that one. And then I was thinking of Network 23 and Max Headroom. That's pretty sharp.
And that was, of course, the whole Robert Anton Wilson focus on 23 and the Sirius star and all of that.
Oh, yeah. The number of Hebrew letters plus 1.
Yeah, and we do focus on that in the album that we've been working on. There's 22 songs, each one correlating to one of the paths and personal experience and initiatic journey of a young person. It's really my experience. And then the 23rd is the quintessence, and it's into 2 halves, one at the beginning of the album, one at the end. And this has been a work in progress for years now that hasn't been completed. Now I just want to get it over with and work on a new project. So,
how long before we'll be able to hear that one?
No way of telling you.
Well, if there's anyone out there who can make it happen, maybe with a little bit of support, maybe they can click the link and, well, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, feel free to donate all you want. It would help. But either way, we'll get it done sometime or another, hopefully sooner than later.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I love the work you're doing. I share the vision of bringing, Hermeticism and deeper wisdom and the divine wisdom, Theosophy in Greek, Theosophia, into the mainstream where people can hear it, as well as having it out here on the fringes, like weird podcasts like this one, where people can also hear it. Connecting, networking, the multimedia thing. I'm really into that idea of having the music and the movies and everything combined, and the live drama and the interaction, and kind of a modern version of an Eleusis rite.
Yep, it's just the right time for it. There's a lot of us out here, and I know that our expectations are sometimes low, in comparison with what we can actually accomplish in the world, as we have this societal interweb connection is helping a lot, and I think we can get a lot more done than we expect we can.
Yeah,
sooner than
building a
later.
support network for sure. Thank you very much for coming on the Esoterinerd podcast tonight.
Thank you for having me, and I also want to thank you for having this and for promoting this. And we need as many people like you and me and all these other individuals who are working towards these goals as humanly possible to get out there and give it their all. And I'm glad that you're one of us, giving it your all and not hiding.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Well, we'll close with one of your songs, and just know, everybody, that this is an older recording, and he's gotten better, and we'll be expecting to hear the new stuff coming around hopefully soon, hopefully in the next year or so.
Indeed. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Have a good night, brother.
93, namaste, blessed be, seize the day, brother.
LVX and blessed be.
Peace be with you.
Peace be with you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Phoenix Suvayas. I'm very glad to have met you. Thank you to the monks at Jofuku-in Temple at Mount Koyasan for providing the intro and the outro of the Esoterinerd podcast. Thank you to identical twins Camille and Kennerly, you should look them up if you haven't already, for providing the beautiful harp transitions. Special thanks to Eguchi Takahito for composing the theme to the Rosenkreuz Orden in the anime Trinity Blood. Thank you, Frater IT, for reciting the entire Fama Fraternitatis in the original German for the new segment in the Esoterinerd podcast. And now, this is Phoenix Suvayas, 23 BC, Sky Mirror.
Sky mirror, won't you let